Well, again, here we are exploring who we are as consciousness. Now, I left you off last week with the idea that we tend to think that outer events cause our emotional and mental consequences, that an outer event like the coronavirus causes us anxiety. It's true if the event wasn't there, we wouldn't have the trigger for anxiety. However, at point A, remember the activating event, point C, the consequence, but what's happening at B? That's where our control is. That's where we find our inner freedom from outer circumstances. And as the Buddha said, suffering has two arrows. One, the event, the activating event, we could call it, and the internal reaction is the second arrow. And so as we work with that second arrow, we can ease the sting of the first arrow. Okay. Now, you've heard me mention the STOP for the 4 inner steps for stress, and they are inner steps. I haven't emphasized that enough. There are also 4 outer steps for the stress of conflict. And I was in the ophthalmologist office, since I have this advanced case of glaucoma. That's why the glasses. My doctor doesn't want me to be on the computer without glasses to block the blue light. So anyway, I was at the ophthalmologist, and they said domestic violence and child abuse had escalated during this period for the virus, people being stuck at home. And so the stress of conflict, the first way to address it is the S, the physical step, the breathing, cool. And as you pause, think of yourself saying, I now, as I say, calm, let my jaw, tongue, and shoulders go limp and feel a wave of warmth and heaviness go down through my body and up the toes of my feet. Then calm. So you're pairing calm with jaw, tongue, and shoulders go limp. Then at T, my anxiety is telling me I would hate to get the coronavirus, and that's because I would love to be safe. Hate, love to be safe. Oh, is there anything I can do about that? Observe your emotional reaction, observe what's available. Yes, you answer. Then P, proceed to do those things. Wear a mask, wash your hands, being careful as the experts have suggested. Okay, now, in case of a situation, and I'll tell you 2 stories about this that kind of led me to this. In case there's a situation involving another person, you still do the cooling and calming. So your body's relaxing, you're feeling good, and then you can do L, listen to this other person that you may have a conflict with, a difference of opinion with. O, open your mind and your heart. And V, verbalize back what you hear them say so you can validate, and they feel validated, that they've been heard. And then E, express yourself. So on the one hand, you can think of it like the left hand, right hand. On the one hand, from your heart, I understand what you're saying. You're saying this. Is that what you're saying? And get agreement. Okay. Now what I'm saying is from your right hand, as if you could say exercising your rights, expressing your feeling. And then as you express it, well, I simply disagree. It doesn't mean I don't understand what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. I simply think this. So in a sense, to be a whole person, we need to be able to express both sides. The side that wants to stay connected and liked and approved of and loved and so forth with the other person, and the side that wants to affirm who I am, where I stand on something. So you make room for both. And I developed this for people who are codependent, who would wishy-wash their messages, so they were really playing down what they wanted in order to not be disliked. They would really not get their point across. So this made room for, okay, I want to stay connected to you, so to speak, and I want to say what I have to say. And it doesn't mean I don't want to stay connected. So I understand, I disagree, and here's why, yet I still understand what you said. So that's the 4 outer steps for conflict. LOVE. Listen, open your heart and mind. V, verbalize back what you hear so you validate them. And then E, express yourself. The left hand, right hand is a way to think about this. Now, one of the things that happened when I started to develop this was a situation where I had a patient who was really at risk for being injured by her son. She had been married to an alcoholic, and the man had left, and they were getting divorced. And the son started to take on traits of the alcoholic husband. And I was afraid that if she didn't learn how to assert herself, or even assert herself enough to make a 911 call to the police, she was going to get seriously injured. So she would come in and she'd start to tell me about the problems of the week and how he'd come at her in a certain way and been aggressive, and then put his face up to hers, and maybe moved his chest toward her and moved her up against a wall. And she'd tell me this, and I knew she wanted to be given some empathy and understanding and so forth. So on the one hand, and so I would find myself doing that, but I didn't want to give her a whole session of just, yes, I understand, and yeah, it sounds like that was difficult and so forth. I wanted her to feel understood on the one hand, but I really wanted to get to assertiveness training, to teach her some steps and empower her so she could take steps that would keep her safe. So what I began to realize was, as she was talking, I would be getting more tense, and I would be getting actually a little anxious, although it wouldn't show. I'd be very professional and would be giving her the empathic responses required, I understand, and so forth. And yet I'd feel this little agitation. And so when I would feel that, and I would come from that and say something about, I think we have to get some assertiveness training. Let's get some practice. Let's go over that event that happened and what he did, and let's talk about how you might assert yourself coolly and calmly, not provoking him and so forth, but really standing your ground in a cool and calm way. I would say that, but I would be coming from a place of tension in myself that I wanted released. I wanted to control what was going on, that is getting her to be a certain way so I would feel okay. So the whole thing in conflict oftentimes is, I need you to be okay so I'm okay. And when I found myself kind of getting to that very subtly, I take a breath and get myself cleared out and say something like, I really don't need her to be okay for me to be okay. I just need to be calm as I deliver my message to her about assertiveness. So when I would say, okay, we need to get onto some assertiveness training, and I didn't come from that little place of tension, I was completely relaxed inside, my message was received better. But in a subtle way, when she could pick up that I was needing her to be a certain way, it would be repeating what she felt in her family, her father needing her to be a good girl and to be a certain way, and all that subtlety would be picked up on. And so what happened was, I came up with this concept of the dragon of dependency. And so another shortcut in this situation, before you do the LOVE, is simply to stop and remind yourself, breathing in, I am not dependent on anything external to myself. I'm not dependent on controlling that activating event for me to feel good, be at peace, and find fulfillment and happiness. Breathing out, I have everything I need within myself right now to feel good, be at peace, and find fulfillment. And a modification of that was this, in terms of the 8 steps to love. Breathing in, I am not dependent on anything external to myself to feel good, be at peace, and find fulfillment. I have everything I need within my heart, where love, the ultimate power operating in the universe, resides for me to feel good, be at peace, and find fulfillment and happiness, whatever you want to tack on there. So, again, you stop and you remind yourself, I really am not dependent on this person being, saying, and doing a certain thing. I really don't. My feeling good doesn't depend on that. It depends on B. Doesn't depend on controlling the activating event. So, the other example was, I was with a woman I had been separated from for some years, and we had gotten back together, and the reunion was beautiful and so forth. And we were watching with friends a movie, Braveheart, with Mel Gibson playing William Wallace. And it was at the end, and he was going to be executed. And she said, please stop the movie. She said that to me and to our friends, and they said, okay. I don't want to hear him making those awful sounds of being tortured. And I let me know when that's over, then I can tune back into the movie. So instantly, I really wanted her to see the reunion between the spirit of his deceased wife, Mel Gibson's wife, and uh, and well, William Wallace, and his wife, and because she's kind of floating through the through the crowd, and coming through, and you can see her as he's being, his body is in pain, and he's holding to his faith. Despite that, he's not caving in, and he's being drawn and quartered. He's being executed, and she's appearing, and they're going to have this wonderful reunion. And so I so wanted to share that with this woman I loved. I wanted her to experience that, and I found myself feeling that tension inside of wanting that. And this is years before I came up with this idea, but of the LOVE. But I did at that moment come up with slaying the dragon of dependency, because at that moment I suddenly found myself saying, breathing in, I don't need anything external to myself to be any particular way to feel good in this moment. Breathing out, I have everything I need in myself right now to feel good. I made a broader statement other than I don't need her to watch the end of the movie for me to feel good. I can watch the movie myself and feel good. Okay, so when I let go of that need to control the activating event, that is her saying, I don't want to watch this, and my wanting her to watch it and share it, this wonderful, tender moment. So when I was able to relinquish that by just simply saying, I'm not dependent on anything external to myself to feel good. Breathing out, I have everything I need within myself right now to feel good. I went to a deeper place that in that statement is more comprehensive and incorporates the idea of having her watch the ending of the movie. And I did that, and everything was fine. And then later that night, as we were getting ready to turn in, she said, I feel so close to you right now. And I realized when she was given the freedom to just be what she needed to be and feel what she needed to feel, and she felt a closeness. Now I felt a kind of an openness, but a complete sort of independence. It was ironic that I felt that, and I wasn't feeling a need for her to be a certain way. And she somehow sensed that and felt really love in response to having been allowed to just be who and what she was and what she wanted. Okay, so this week again, I want you to pay attention to this dragon of dependency, this belief that the activating event causes your reaction. Your reaction is mediated by what you're thinking, your judging mind is evaluating and telling you. So another quick example before we finish. Two people. One person is driving down the road, cop car behind him, the sirens are blaring, pulls up on him. That person suddenly, activating event is the police car. Consequence, anxiety. What is this person telling themselves to create this anxiety? Because another person, same situation, riding down the road, siren blaring, the cop pulling him over, and at point C, A, the car, point C, anger. What's the difference? It's the same activating event. It's here. This person is telling themselves something different. So the first person is saying, oh my God, I'm going to lose my license. I don't know what I'm going to do. Oh, I'm so scared. I can't risk this. The other person is saying, I'm really angry. I think he set me up. I'm going to fight this. I don't care what he says. I'm going to fight this. I'm going to take it to court. So remember, activating event does not cause the consequence. It's the beliefs. The beliefs, what you're telling yourself. So this week again, you can sort of practice taking a look at events that happen and things that happen in your interactions. If a person's disagreeing with you and you're feeling pressure to try to pressure them to agree with you, rather than listen, open your heart and mind, V, verbalize back by validating what you hear them say, and then E, express yourself. And underlying that, realize that the core belief is the belief that I am dependent on external conditions to be a certain way to feel good. And you're not. Your happiness depends on you in here and your evaluation. So with that, have a great week, and I'll see you next week.